My name is Amy Newman, and I am a 25-year veteran teacher who's been the whole time spent in kindergarten and first grade classrooms. And right now, I love teaching reading so much that I have decided to pursue my master's degree in reading, in elementary reading. And I want to thank you for taking the time to view this video and to invest in your teaching practice. My hope is that this video will provide you background information and some instructional strategies you can use to address the needs of your beginning readers and writers. Remember, reading is a process, and teachers of literacy are always adding to their professional toolbox and investing in their own growth as educators. So in 1999, Congress charged a 14-member panel of teachers, researchers, school administrators, and scientists involved in reading research to examine over 100,000 reading studies, peer-reviewed reading studies that provided insight into how children learned how to read. And in 2000, this national reading panel concluded its investigation and released the following recommendations for components that are needed to be involved in effective research-based reading instruction. And in summary, this panel identified 5 components that are essential approaches to teaching reading. And these approaches included phonemic awareness, which is the knowledge that spoken words can be broken apart into smaller segments and sounds known as phonemes. Children who are read to at home, especially materials that rhyme, will often develop phonemic awareness naturally, but children who do not have a rich home and literate environment, or not read to a lot or spoken to a lot, will need systematic and explicit instruction where they can learn to break words into smaller parts. One effective strategy that I use to address students' need in phonemic awareness is that of picture sorting. So students are given 2 pictures with keywords or key sounds, like a cat, and say it has the at in cat, and a pen that has the n in pen, and then other pictures that they're asked to sort according to which of the 2 sounds that word has in it. One resource that I recommend for that is Jan Richardson's book, The Next Step Forward in Word Study and Phonics. And she has recommended sorts that correspond to children's reading levels so that you can use them in your guided reading groups. And children progress through those skills and in their ability to hear sounds and words. But the goal is to make sure that students are able to hear those sounds and words, and they have to be able to hear those sounds before they can recognize those sounds in print or produce those sounds through writing. So this leads us to the next component of solid reading instruction, that is that of phonics. And this is where the sound-symbol relationship is solidified. In phonics, students learn to represent the phonemes that they hear in words with letters and groups of letters, spelling patterns, and then they can understand that they can blend those spelling patterns together to make words. This allows students to word solve unknown words by looking for spelling patterns and by blending the sounds of those patterns together to make words. The panel recommended a systematic approach to teaching phonics, and an effective strategy for teaching phonics is that of Elkanon boxes or sound boxes. And in this strategy, students practice hearing the sounds in words, counting those sounds, and choosing a template of boxes representing how many sounds are in that word, and finally writing the word. Again, the length of the word and the use of more complex spelling patterns, and including digraphs or trigraphs, will progress as students' reading levels progress. This activity is also available in the word study and phonics book that I already mentioned. The next component is that of fluency, and that is just the ability to intonate, to say, to speak in a way that supports comprehension. And one approach to address the needs of teaching students fluency is that of guided oral reading. And through this practice, students gain sight word and high frequency word recognition. They increase their reading speed and learn to use their voice to better support what they're saying, what they're reading, and that supports their comprehension. The next component of solid reading instruction is that of vocabulary. Students with better vocabulary are better able to comprehend what they're reading. So through multiple interactions with new words that involve both explicit teaching of those words and through reading, singing, and listening and speaking, students build on their vocabulary. One approach to teaching vocabulary words when reading an interactive read aloud involves introducing the new word, telling students what the word means in this text, because we often encounter multiple meaning words or different shades of meaning of a particular word, and what the telling and having the students turn and talk to their partner and explain what that word is going to mean in this text. And then later, when you do encounter that word in the text, making sure that students are understanding the meaning of the author based on using that particular vocabulary word. Students will need multiple experiences of that same word, remember, to make it part of their vocabulary that they can use for reading and writing. Let's see, it aids in their reading comprehension as they are better able to access the meaning the author is trying to convey when they understand those vocabulary words. The final reading approach to teaching reading recommended by the panel is that of reading comprehension strategies. These are techniques that teachers use to help students comprehend the text that they are reading and helping them to understand what they're reading. And one effective approach to supporting a student's reading comprehension is to clearly introduce text structure and to help students to summarize a text based on what they know about text structure. One thing that I like to use in my first grade classroom is the 5-finger retell. And by reflecting on the text structure of a book, students can determine the essential elements of the main idea and details the author is trying to teach us. So they use their 5-finger retell to tell us the main idea, the details, and the author's purpose for writing. And they do that based on, is it a compare and contrast? Well, then main idea is the author is trying to teach us how to compare and contrast, for instance, sharks and whales. One detail is that sharks and whales are the same because they both live in oceans, or they're different because one is a mammal and one is a fish. So they can use the non-fiction 5-finger retell and the text structure to retell the author's main idea. And finally, though writing is not a component of the National Reading Panel's study, it is an area where teachers of literacy cannot be remiss. It's really an important part of becoming a literate individual. So the Common Core state standards dictate 3 areas of focus for teachers of writing in the primary grades: informational, narrative, and opinion. And we know that children learn to read by reading, and the same can be concluded for writing, that they learn to write by writing. So this can be accomplished through a writer's workshop approach that uses anchor charts to teach mini lessons, gives time every day for students to write on topics that are of interest to them and relevant to their own lives, and then through formative assessments and reviewing their writing that they're producing, the teacher reconvenes small groups of writers to reteach, to clear up any misunderstandings, and to provide challenges and next steps for students performing above grade level who have learned what has already been taught to the whole group. And we understand as literacy teachers that reading and writing are reciprocal, and they support each other. As a student learns to hear sounds and words and learns the letters and sounds and spelling patterns that represent those sounds, they became able to translate that into their writing. In the areas of phonemic awareness and phonics, the reading and writing connection works the opposite way too. As children learn to write and spell words, they are able to hear the sounds in those words more clearly. In fact, as a personal reflection, I remember distinctly as a 2nd grade student learning to spell words and reflecting to myself and saying, I have never thought that that's what they were saying. I did not know that that those were the sounds in that word. I've been saying and hearing that word wrong this whole time. So to continue, as students learn more vivid vocabulary, they are through reading and speaking, they're able to use those words in their own writing, and increasing the complexity and the interest in the things that they are writing. And as they play with those new words, they're able to solidify their understanding of that new vocabulary too. Like, how can I use this word? And through fluency practice, children learn to read using the intended inflection of the author. They use the commas and the periods and the punctuation, and that supports their understanding of the text. And this translates into their writing as students use conventions of writing to ensure the message of their text is truly understood. Finally, through their work in reading comprehension in the area of text structure, children learn as writers how to construct their own texts to fully convey what their true message is in what they're trying to write, and to support their readers' understanding of the text that they're trying to write. Ongoing instruction that is used to inform your literacy groups and whole group action is essential to ensure that your students are receiving the important supports and scaffolds as well as challenges. So we need to constantly be assessing where students are at so we can use those assessments to guide that instruction. And some common assessments that I recommend would be an informal reading inventory or running record. And one system I have used is the Fountas and Pinnell Benchmark Assessment System. This diagnostic and progress monitoring assessment is useful to group students and to provide them with the reading materials at their instructional level. And as we use these tests formatively, you're able to account for flexible groupings that allow movement as students progress. So we use those tests in an ongoing manner, or those assessments in an ongoing manner, to notice that, oh, I think this student is ready to move to a new group, or to keep things relevant to students, so that we are providing scaffolds, but removing those scaffolds and allowing students to progress at their own levels. Another formative assessment that I recommend is available from that same Jan Richardson book that I talked to you about, the Word Study and Phonics book. And in this assessment, you are provided with a list of words that students should be able to spell at their reading level. Starting one level below that reader's reading level, instructional level, you ask them to spell the words provided. And through this assessment, you are able to monitor to ensure that a student's phonics skills are progressing at the rate that is expected for their reading levels, so that they're not reading a much farther level above what their actual decoding skills and phonics skills will enable them to support as texts get more complex. And through that, we can form groups to work with small groups that are encountering those same problems to correct any deficiencies and support all learners in developing the decoding skills that they need to move to the next level. The school and district that I work in uses an online learning platform called iReady to assess our students, but also to provide individualized adaptive lessons that start at a student's identified area of need and lead them through a progression of skills that they need to be able to perform at the next level. And I would recommend that your literacy leadership team look into that resource and determine if your students could benefit from this online platform called iReady. And then it's important to note that a literacy coach and a reading specialist can be an invaluable resource in supporting teachers in the development of the literacy of their students. The reading coach can engage in action research with a specific teacher to address the need that teacher sees in his or her own classroom. The reading specialist will direct the literacy vision of the school with the help of their literacy leadership team. And the reading specialist will conduct ongoing and systematic professional development with the staff based on the needs identified through assessment data and teacher input. Reading specialists will work with small groups of students in or out of the classroom and may demonstrate or observe lessons to provide valuable models of instructional strategies or important feedback. And I want to thank you for your time today. I hope you learned something that will be useful to you, or at least that you were able to review some important truths about growing your students' literacy. In the comment areas, I have provided you with the professional trade books and articles of which I have drawn to make this video, and I encourage you to use these resources to continue your research into effective research-based reading and writing instruction. And as always, I offer you blessings. Thank you.